Okay, I'm going to wait a second and let everybody get in there that wants to. We don't have too many rows that are full. You guys can use those extra monitors from our missing and or absent people. Good, getting it? Okay, I'm gonna go for it. What is that thing? You'll see the code. Even split, very good. Now our book refers to it as both. Call it a relational operator if you want to be right everywhere. But I tell you, they go back and forth. We'll take them both. What is that word in the code? Very good. It logically connects. All I'm going to say. That's not too far ahead. What about that thing? Oh, uh-oh. Notice I was super careful to not use it in our condition. Remember, the equal sign assigns a value. 2 equal signs is a comparison. 1 equal sign assigns a value. That's why Kahoots can really be helpful sometimes. Okay, what about this? What's this part? Very good, very good. So our logical operator connects those conditional expressions, which I didn't want to say until this one had come up. Okay, let's see. Oh, this is taking over. An if statement is a very good. Sequential statements are those ones that just get processed in order. With an if statement, remember, we're selecting certain code to execute. When we add an else clause to it, good, good, good. Remember, with an else clause, we have 2 alternatives. We can do the if body or the else body. So it's a dual alternative. Oh, got a new leader. False is a good, 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 good. We got some battling up here. What's that? Very good. It's not a trick question. Sometimes people are sure it's a trick. What about this case statement? Good, good, good. And many and multiple sound the same, but we use the term multiple alternative. Okay, someone is taking it on. Which one is an assignment operator? Try and beat that horse till it's dead. Not in a bad way, of course. Well, we better just do that again, huh? Okay, too many people are getting too many basics wrong. So good job, our winners. We're going to run it again. So I want you to go as fast as you can and get the right answer. Yeah, just show them to reinforce some of these. Okay, so new pin 147895. So buzzer war is what I want first thing in the morning. Get everybody woke up. Oh, look at you go. Everybody's ready now. Got 13. Come on, 14. Couple more. Slowing way down. You done? Yeah, because you're okay because you had them all. That's all right. Okay. I'm going to assume 16 is good to go. You can laugh at them. All right. They're in the same order even. What is that? Switched it up a little bit. That's okay. So got that right answer. She's going to be hard to beat. What is the and? Much better. We're forming that logical relationship. What is that thing? I'm going to say it. Getting there. Oh, we have a new leader here. What is this part? Good. That's our condition. I'll just harp on and on about that condition because we're going to need it for our looping statements too. An if statement is a excellent. Don't let them trick you with that weird terminology. An if statement with an else clause is some of this stuff, I swear, the textbook authors just made up so they could have test questions. But we got to know it, or we look dumb. Yay. It's always two sides. There's the writing, the programs, the hands-on side, and then the terminology. We can mix it up a little bit, though. False is a Good job. Somebody clicked the wrong color by accident, right? We'll just say that. What about this? What's this? Oh, buzzer board. That's what we like. I got it. Speech all. A case statement is, aren't you on the wireless? And she still beat you all. Very good. It's multiple. Lastly, which one is the assignment operator? Better. Yay. Okay, that's what we want. We'll remember those things. Let's see, I've got a, what's that? Okay, who was taking that weird name? Oh, it wasn't a weird name. There you are, Madison, sneaking around on me. It's like, who is low? We had some new winners. Very, very good. Whenever you are studying, don't forget to go to Quizlet.com. Haley mentioned this morning, she told me I'm using her name in vain, but she mentioned that she likes to make flashcards, and that's such a good idea. And on Quizlet, if I can remember my login, I don't like logging in front of people because this is one of those sites that has a weird password and I should fix it. You know how that is. There it goes. But if you go to Quizlet, what I've found is if you search for Prelude to Programming, I don't have any of these linked to our Canvas site because we just have so many things on Canvas already. But you should be able to find some different flashcard sets. And these first few, you might not see them in the same order because I'm logged on, so it's showing me mine. Am I just searching mine? I might just be searching mine. I hate the way they change things all the time. It's like one time you're searching yours, the next time you're searching everything. Let me make sure I'm searching everything. I am. Well, at least I have some out there. Can you guys see them? Because I might have to do something if you can't. So here's like chapter 4, if statements. And this should just be flashcards of all of the key terms that are in our textbook with the definition. Now the definition I sort of had to look up in our book, so you know it could be less than perfect. It's not generated by the textbook like some of them are. But with Quizlet, if you haven't ever used it before, you could just print these out if you like hard copy flashcards. Of course, the best thing is to write them down and make them yourself, right? Because then that writing down is really going to help you remember things. But if you don't feel like you have time to do that and you would just rather use something that's pre-existing, you can go to flashcards and you can look at them online and just click and it'll show you the front and back of the card. Or you could print them all out if you wanted to and cut them up and have flashcards. If you go back to the main Quizlet screen, you can do lots of other things, like you can play a matching game where it shows you all of the different terms and definitions on the screen and you drag and drop to match them up with each other. So some people like that. I like that one. That one's kind of meaningful to me more so than the flashcard memorization thing. They also have some other study activities. You can even generate yourself a test from the flashcards. So Quizlet just keeps getting better and better with all of the things you can do. Another thing about these Quizlet decks, these flashcard decks, is you can find a million apps on your phone that will connect to Quizlet. So if you're stuck somewhere and you have your phone, you can bring up those flashcards on Quizlet in your app on your phone and look like you're really important. That's what we all want. We want stuff to do so that we look super important. So Quizlet is a big help. Another thing that can help. I know that I have at least one student who is having a hard time with a computer at home. You know, sometimes we have them and they break, Sometimes we just don't have one. So that's a really cool thing about Python is we could use some different websites to code Python. Let's see, I'm just going to search for code in Python online. Now, the first few that I find are training sites like Code Academy. We know that that's a training site. That's not going to help us write our Python code online. But Tutorials Point here says that they have an online Python compiler. So that means if I had the ability to bring up this website, whether it was on some other device, I know that's still some other device, but a lot of people have access to like a Chromebook or something that's a little less than a computer, they could bring up this type of website and code their Python code. And then you might have to do some sort of fancy footwork to get it submitted, like email it to themselves here so that they could submit it in Canvas. But be creative, be adaptable about getting those things done.
Yeah, I had an issue loading Python on my last computer, so I just typed my code into the text box.
Into a text box, and that's great as long as it works. As we get into more advanced ones, you need to be able to test it. Okay. Yeah, because you did a great job, and so that'll do it. But anything you can think of along those lines. So we have that ability to code Python online. I'm going to go back because I know there's some others.
Is there a way to get Python downloaded onto a new computer? Because I bought a new computer.
So look at our setup module in our module section, and that has all of the links. You just go to python.org.
Okay.
And get it downloaded. So anything like that you're having trouble with, just send me an email and we'll get you all fixed. So there looks like there's lots of online Python compilers, so you can type that code up and get it tested. So let's write some code today. I keep saying we're going to start a new compiler, a new editor, but I think we're better off to wait until after spring break to make big changes like that because we've just been working okay with idle. So remember, I guess, that the internet has a lot of solutions to problems that you might encounter because we're an internet-based class, really, if you think about it. Even though we're not an online class, I keep everything on Canvas because we are a computer class, and so it's important for us to work in that kind of mode, that kind of mentality. The first thing I'd like to do today whoops, I got off here. I was looking at that comparison operator versus relational operator issue. And I'm in our textbook in chapter 4. We were looking at all of these different if statements. And what I want to find is somewhere in here they have this little code chunket for a payroll calculation. I'm sorry, I've lost it. I had it and then I went off someplace else and it was very bad. Hang on, I'll find it again. Now we saw our selection symbol in Raptor, but we didn't really practice a whole lot with that. I think the concept's more important than getting all of the practice with Raptor. Okay, let me see if I can get it to the right spot. Silly thing. I clicked it and it just went to the wrong place. Sometimes online books aren't the greatest. So they talk about this payroll calculation, and we're going to do the same thing as what they show. And I finally found it here. See if I can tell. Of course, they won't. Page 192. Now, you don't have to get your book out, but if you want to, you certainly can. This is the pseudocode that I'm going to be looking at. So what we have here is we're going to prompt for the pay rate, how much money does somebody make per hour, and then how many hours did they work. And then we're going to check with an if statement to decide how to calculate their pay rate. Now, the deal is if they work over 40 hours, as long as they make less than $10 an hour, they get overtime pay. And their overtime pay is time and a half. If you've ever heard that kind of expression, time and a half means their normal pay rate plus half again, or 50% again on top of that. So we're going to do that calculation to calculate their pay rate if they make small enough money and worked enough hours. Otherwise, we're going to just calculate their pay in a normal way, just taking their hours times their pay rate. So let's open idle and create a new program file. So that's what we want to do. Let's see, most everybody I think has been here. Help your neighbor if they need some help remembering. I was kidding earlier today, when we come back after spring break, some people it'll be like a whole new world. That's okay. It's easy to forget these things. But we want to create a new file for now, and I want to save it. I'm going to save this new file to my Python folder that I have on my H drive. And we're going to name this pay calculator python.py. And of course the .py tells us it's Python, but I like having that in our name since we do these things so many different ways. Now we're going to put our comments in first. Remember our header comments. And so far we have been using the 3 single quotes, because we found that if we do 3 single quotes and then another set of 3 single quotes, everything in between there is comments. Let's try using a pound sign instead. We want to try some different options here. And then I'm going to put some hyphens around that. Now if I could see, right, I'll go ahead and close that comment. I don't need to, but for my flower box effect, I will. Now, when we used our 3 tick marks, we found that the tab key kind of acted weird, like idle was thinking we wanted to do something, and that's because of those 3 single quotes. It was wanting to help us with all of that commenting or documentation, and it was getting a little bit annoying because it wasn't documenting the way we wanted to. So now we can type and use our tab keys and stuff without as much disruption. So I'm going to put in that this script name is the pay calculator. Now again, I can go all the way over to this side and close this flower box. That's kind of the way people like to do it. I'll put me in as the developer, and I'll put from P to P, because I'm really getting this right out of that book. And then I'm going to try to close my flower box again. And of course, if you tabbed over and you came up with some sort of method of doing this flower box thing, it would not be hard. I'll put in my date here. Now, the first place that I worked out of college, if you did change a program, an existing program, we were required to use this flower box type thing to create a comment above what we changed and below what we changed, And then over on the side, we had to put some additional comments on the actual lines that we changed so that everything would match together. So it's not really uncommon to have to do something along these lines. Now our purpose here is to calculate employee pay. And then I'll close my flower box. I'm supposed to get my new glasses any day, and I do see sideways. So these things are hard for me. Yes, sir? Do you have a question? You okay? Uh-huh. Oh, as I had adjustment. Okay, so we got our beautiful, beautiful comment box, and now I want to put in some code. First of all, we need to declare our variables. We know that we're going to require some things as input. Now I sit down and I always start coding, right? Because I just want to get all this Python knowledge to you. But what about our IPO chart for this program? If we had an IPO chart and we said we need to say what our input's going to be, what our process is going to be, and what our output is going to be. We know that our output is going to be their total pay, right? And normally, we like to start with the output. How are we going to design this program? Well, now, how do we get their total pay? Well, we saw that in our pseudocode, it says if their rate is less than 10, and their hours are greater than 40, then we're going to do that calculation to calculate the overtime pay. I'm not going to write it down because you wouldn't be able to read my writing anyways, right? So you got the idea in the pseudocode. Otherwise, we're going to do our normal pay calculation. So what do we need as input? This is our desired output, our total pay. We know we have these calculations that we've got to do. We can almost look at this if statement and know that we need those things, right? We need their rate and we need their hours. Do what?
I was going to say hours worked.
Hours worked, exactly. And that should be all we need. Is now, since I scribbled here and left out some details, we could run into some trouble and need something else. But for now, we know that we need those two things. So let's declare our variables. We're going to say our rate is going to be a number. So we'll start with it equal to 0. And our hours are going to be a number. So we'll start with it equal to 0. Now, two things that we have in this if statement are numeric literals. And if you remember a few weeks ago, I said we don't want those in our code. So let's create variables for those. And these are like unchanging variables. So we'll pretend they're constants. Let's say our OT rate is 10 and our OT hours are 40. Now we can use those variables in our if statements. And if somebody gets a raise or something and they decide that people that make under $15 an hour deserve overtime, they can just change it in that declaration there instead of having to find that in our code. All right, so what do we need to do first then? We've got our variables. How are we going to know what these input values are?
We have to make a prompt for them to whatever.
Let's prompt them. So to get our rate, we're going to use an integer. And we want to use that input method. And we'll say, please enter the hourly pay rate. And of course, shorten that prompt if that's something that seems like typing practice to you. Now, when I pressed enter, my cursor went down here. It didn't go to the right place. Does that mean something?
It means you're missing a parenthesis.
Sure does, exactly. I did not close that parenthesis. So I'm gonna backspace or back tab to fix that. And idle will help me a little bit that way and know that I didn't get that quite finished. And then I see all my color coding, everything looks good. So then our hours will be the same way. We'll take an integer. We're not gonna pay people for partial hours in our system. Please enter the hours worked. I think that before we prompt for input, let's print out a nice welcome message. Welcome to the payroll calculator. We will need your hourly rate and hours worked. And then we could print, if we wanted to, a line of hyphens. So for this is just going to be our welcome message. Print a welcome message to our program. And then we're prompting for our input. Looking really, really good. So we're ready then, if we have our input, we're ready to do our calculations or our processing. So I'm going to space down a couple of lines and let's put in that we'll do our calculations or processing. Let me maximize this and press enter a few times so that you can see it a little better, hopefully. All right, now as I look at the pseudocode, we can do our if statement. So in Python, how would we start that if statement? What is our keyword for a decision? If? Right, it's that easy. So don't let those words. So what do I want to check?
If hours are less than 10.
Perfect. And
Yeah.
okay, that sounds good. If hours greater than 40, I'll just make this one be our rate. And then we'll be in the same order as the one in the book. And our hours are greater than 40. And then since it's Python, we have to end that if statement with our colon. And when we press enter, we should be indented because it knows that we're in a body now because we had that colon character. Now I need some more variables here. Like I said, since we didn't write everything down, I knew we might be missing some. Let's create a couple more. I'm going to go up to our area where we declared our variables, and I'm going to put them before our constants. So I would like to have a variable overtime hours. And then overtime pay. Let's see what else they have. Total pay. Now, I don't like these other variable names because I think OT rate and OT hours, it's really confusing compared to our other overtime variables. So I think I'm going to add CK to these for check, because these are the variables we're going to use to check that. And then we better use them. So we don't want to check to see if rate is less than 10. We want to check to see if rate is less than OT rate check. And then our hours, we want to check to see if our hours are greater than our OT hours check. Now look at that, because it just shows you how flexible things are when you're coding. We went from having the numbers right in our if statements to using variable names instead. And we can do it either way. That's fine. It doesn't matter how we do it. It's preferred that we use variable names instead of having numbers and things like that directly coded in our code. But either way is fine. So it just gives us more flexibility. Okay, so now if we are going to calculate our overtime rate, the first thing we're going to calculate is our overtime hours. How many of our hours were over 40? So we're going to take our hours minus our OT hours check value. And that's going to tell us how many of those hours were over 40. I'll put a comment there. Hours that were over 40. Now we can calculate our overtime pay equal to those overtime hours times 1.5 times our pay rate. So why do we have that 1.5 in our code? I just said we're not supposed to do these things.
What you have is it's a constant, because you know that overtime is your pay plus half.
We always know it's not going to ever change, so we're safe using it in our code exactly, but we still would be better off to set up a variable. So it's always something that we could use. So we can set it up. We'll call it time half. So anytime we're doing programming like this, we can try to set up everything as a constant value in our variables. We can put a bunch of things in our code, but we're always better off if we can document it all in our variables section. Okay, so now we know how many hours were overtime, and we use that information to calculate how much pay should be overtime pay. Now we can finally calculate their total pay, and we're going to say that that's going to be equal to our 40 hours, OT hours check, times their normal pay rate, plus their overtime pay. Do we need any parentheses or anything in that calculation?
We shouldn't technically, because it do the multiplication first, right?
Right. Would you like them in there? Yes.
Would be nice.
Good job. Even though we know it's going to happen in the right order, it's just nice.
Gonna break it down.
Yeah. Gives us that confirmation. We know, yeah, we're on track. What about that previous calculation where we took overtime hours times the 1.5 times our rate? Is it going to happen in the right order?
Yeah, because multiplication is commutative.
So it won't matter. Would you like parentheses on there? Nah, don't care. Because it doesn't really matter. Perfect. Okay, so everything should be going along just great. Excuse me.
Information at first now.
Could we test? We could test our input. We don't really have any output yet. If we use that Python site where we can visualize, we would be able to test really good because we'd be able to see those variables. So first of all, let's try running it here. I'm going to run my module. Oh, and it was good because I have a typo. It says I have invalid syntax. Can you see anything wrong with that line? I'll put that in. Try again. Okay, now I'm getting my first prompt. I'll say that the hourly pay rate is 8 and the hours worked is 45. And of course I won't see anything happening because we don't have any output yet, but I can tell that it's running properly. So let's copy it. Control A, Control C. And then I'm going to go to that visualize Python code, pythontutor.com, and paste my code. Now, if you can't find the site or it's not working for you, that's okay. You can just watch on the Zoom session and see what's going on. Because what we should see is if I visualize execution, I'm going to start out here ready to declare our first variable, that rate variable. So I'll click forward, and there is our rate variable in memory. It's set up, and it's got a value of 0. Our hours now is set up. I can just keep going, get each of our variables allocated in memory. Now finally I'm ready to print out our first welcome message. There it's printed, so that looks okay. Try again. There's our second message printed, and then our line of hyphens. Now our input prompt is displaying here. It's asking me for the hourly pay rate. I think I can use can I use a keyboard somewhere? No, just get it messed up. Stop, just get it messed up. Where is it? This keyboard button? Oh, that's too hard. Okay, so I want to do 8. Because I want to see it go through our if statement. So I'll put in 8. Submit. And next, how many hours worked? I want 45. I wasn't in the right place. I'll get it. Drive you crazy in the meantime. 45. It did it. Submit. Okay. Now I finally have all my input data. So I'm to my if statement. My if statement should be true. And we should see it execute each of the lines of code in our if block. It's going to calculate overtime hours. We should see that value change. And then our overtime pay, 60 bucks. And then our total pay should calculate. So everything looks like it's calculating good. Are you guys getting something? Good, okay. Sometimes when you look at sites like this, it seems like a little bit of trouble. But then when I hear of students that spent 4 hours trying to figure out one line of code, I think, oh, that site's not much trouble. It's a great help. All right, are we ready for our else statement? I'm going to press backspace so that it goes back to column 1 for me to type my else clause, because if I'm indented, it's not going to work properly. And the only thing I need to do in my else is calculate the total pay. It's going to be equal to our hours times our rate. Now I want to press backspace on that because that's the end of our if statement. Now we're going to output the total pay. So let's print something out like the total pay is and remember we have to change our total pay into a string by using the str function. I think I would like to have a $sign before that pay. So I'm going to put a $sign in our string. And then we should be all good to go. Does it run? So you want to test with all sorts of different conditions. We would want to test with pay above and below $10, with hours above 40. Then we would want to test with pay above and below $10 an hour, with hours below 40, so that we tested all of our different conditions. So I'll do a pay rate of 10 and 40 and make sure that I don't get overtime because I'm not supposed to, right? So that would be one area where we could end up having a little bit of a bug because of our comparisons. Now I'll run it again. And this time I can put in 12 and 45. Still shouldn't get overtime because my pay is too high. Everybody's working okay?
Yeah. It's not calculating overtime. We put in $10 an hour, 50 hours. It only gives us
So look at your if statement. Is it going to calculate overtime if your pay is $10 an hour?
no.
No? Why not?
It needs to be less than.
It's got to be less than.
It's less than.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not less than or equal to. Okay. So if we do $9 an hour.
No, that's an important point because that's what always gets us. Looks good. Everybody's awesome. Now, we have our Python quick reference manual. Let's get that thing updated. You may have, but I know the last I updated was I put in our if statement and I didn't add anything much else like the else clause. So I'm going to say that I have an if condition colon. And then I will shift enter so it doesn't open up a new line and put my if statement body. And then I'm going to put in my else clause with the colon and my else clause statement body. So if there's anything that you want to copy out of our code as examples, do that so that you have that information in your quick reference. Now with this little program that calculates our pay and that visualize website, make sure that it's making sense to you, that the if statement with the and condition as far as checking the rate and the pay, that we're making sense there, that something isn't seeming weird. Okay, I told you last time that we would do our car price calculator. Let's see if we can get started on that. And then, yes, sir?
I have a question about
Uh-huh. What you got?
Okay, I'm watching. That's making me nervous. It's picking on you.
Yeah, because I'm looking at that Brimstone site to get everything. So it'll have all your stuff. No problem. Okay, great. Everybody is good. Let's create a new file. Yes, sir? What's that?
Is there such a thing as like a greater than or equal to or less than or equal to operator in Python, or would you have to sit there and do like?
No, for sure. You could just put an equal sign right there.
Okay, so it's both times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we could do that.
I tried putting it on the left side. I tried putting it like on the small.
Uh-huh.
And it takes me a syntax here.
So to me, I do greater than or equal, less than or equal, and you just kind of say it that way, and so that'll help you get the equal sign in the right place. So many little details. Do ask about anything like that that you think of. I don't know if I've told you guys some of I have a lot of dumb stories, but when I first started teaching, I was teaching a night class, and it was an intro to computers. And to use the mouse, it was really good for people to play solitaire, to learn how to click and do single clicks and double clicks and things like that. I know you guys have been using a mouse so long you would never even imagine not knowing how, but these people had never touched one. And they would come to class and do things like this, you know, and shake it and stuff, and it wouldn't do anything. And so you would really have to teach them how. Well, my worst one was, I was just talking about it, and I was like, you know, your mouse is moving around, and you use this button to right click, and all that kind of stuff. And finally, one of the people was like, can I ask you a question? And I said, sure. And we were on Windows. And they said, is that little white arrow thing moving when you move that mouse thing? And I'm like, yes. Yes, it is. So little things like that, sometimes you need somebody to point out because you just assume that they got it. And sometimes you just left it out and you shouldn't have. Okay, so here's our beautiful flower box. I'm not going to put on here that it's a flower box this time. You guys got that? So what are you guys going to do, like when you're working or someplace and you run across somebody who's never used a computer, never touched one? Are there such people? Yes, there are.
I think, I don't know, a lot of jobs have like prerequisites or requirements that you have to have on your resume before they'll even consider you.
Do you think that, to me, I think it's going to be like two different classes. I mean, they've been talking about that for a really long time, but we're getting to that point now where we're seeing people that have never ever touched one that are you guys' age, and how can they survive? Well, not very well in our society, really. And so this is going to be a problem for you guys to figure out what to do about those people.
Most jobs that I've worked at, especially if it was like a technical position, they make you take a computer test.
You have to
Like
do
during
it.
the application.
Well, my daughter is in New Orleans, and when she moved to Louisiana about 5 years ago, there were several schools in rural areas that did not have computers yet. And so there are lots of students that were in school that had never actually seen one. She started teaching computers, and that's what she said. Some of these people that come into the library have actually never seen a computer in person before. And that is hard to believe to me because computers are so much a part of my life and have been for years. I can't imagine. But she said, no, there are a lot of people that come in and have, it's like, oh, meet a computer. And they're like, oh, I've seen those on the TV. And so we got to worry about them. What are we going to do with those people? Okay, this script is going to be our new car price. I get to just say, oh, you guys are going to have to worry about that. Nice getting old and saying, I don't know.
Yeah, I've been working in IT for about a year.
Uh-huh.
And you talk to some people, it makes you wonder sometimes.
Don't ya? Calculate new car price. My son worked at Mizzou for several years, and he was on help desk. And one call he got was from an instructor, a professor. And this professor was looking at a website, and so he brought up the website the professor was looking at, and it had a whole bunch of links. And they were all PDF documents. And I apologize if I've told you before, because I don't have that many good stories. But anyways, they were all PDF documents except the very last one, which was something else. And he asked the lady if she had that software installed, and she said, I don't know, what are you talking about? And he said, well, if you can click on your start menu. And she hung up on him, and she called the 800 number, the help desk report number, and she said that he was just using all sorts of technical terms and going over her head when he asked her to click on her start menu. So is that what kind of stuff you get?
Sometimes, like, some people don't know what, I mean, it was moved recently. I don't know, with those kind of all, like, people don't know where File Explorer is.
That's a hard one for people.
You can just start type in anything. You'll find anything.
Yeah.
Troubleshooting on cell phones is a lot worse because, like, you get like I don't know, people in the 60s, 70s, and 80s that don't have never used a smartphone before. Like, my Wi-Fi's not working. I don't know what to do with my phone. And like, you have to explain every little process of click here. Do you see this thing?
I don't know how you do it.
It's very frustrating.
Because they can't see things, and they're so teeny. I can't see anything.
Yeah,
My father-in-law, we gave him a fairly new iPhone, and he was all happy with it. And then the next thing we knew, he was upset about how much that cell phone plan cost. So he went and found a $14.95 cell phone plan that doesn't give him any data. And then he can't understand why the iPhone won't do all those things that he wants it to do, like show him maps. You disabled it. Well, it was too expensive. Okay, here's our new price calculator. Now, do you remember this one?
Yeah.
We had this awesome Raptor flow chart where we asked people about their car. So we're going to do this in Python, and we're going to come back and set up our variables. And then I'm going to kind of put an outline here. We're going to have a welcome message. We're going to prompt for input. Kind of think about the outline of our program. Now, as we prompt for input, we're going to be doing some of our processing right then, right? Because if they say that they want, you know, the 8-cylinder, we added more money to our cost. So after we've done all of our prompting for input, we'll have a calculation, but it's kind of a final calculation, right? And then our output. So our program is going to be pretty much the same kind of outline as our others have been. We pretty much do the same things. So sometimes if you guys are on Stack Overflow or some website and you're trying to figure out how to do something, remember that person might have just been bored and trying to figure out a way to do something in a really complicated manner. One good thing about Stack Overflow is other people will call them on it. Okay, I'm looking here what all variables we needed, because I want to make sure that I've found the whole list. It's a lot, and I'm just having this terrible time finding things this morning. So I see, first of all, we asked them for their name. We'll leave that blank. We ask them how much the base price is of this car and what the car make is. Now, two things that we said were constants were our dealer charge of $175 and our shipping charge of $500. I'm going to go ahead and put our selling price, which is kind of our total. And then we have all of our choices and costs, right? So we have our engine choice, which is a string, and our engine cost, which is a number. Then we had our trim, is what they called our interior, our trim choice, which is a string, and our trim cost, which is a number. And finally, we had our radio choice, which is a string, and our radio cost, which is a number. So I'm thinking about my daughter a lot today, you guys. Sorry, you know, it's Mardi Gras, so she's down there doing all that day drinking. Not good for you. Hope she's okay. Mardi Gras, crazy people. So tomorrow in New Orleans, she'll have things like raging drunks will come walking in the library still with their liquor, wanting to know where the party has gone, because their building is the closest. And they'll call the police. And the police take them outside and make sure that they're not going to die, lean them up against the building, and leave. And so then they wander have a fun time. I don't know how she does it. I don't think I could handle it. It's people looking for help at the library, right? Yes, sir.
How picky is Python about spaces, like between the variable and space, or the space and zero?
It's not as picky as it is about the indenting, but if everything's squished up together, sometimes it can get confused if there's no spaces. Is there something that it's doing?
I'm just curious.
Just curious.
I took HTML last semester. I knew that you could pretty much compress every last piece of it without a single space.
Doing anything.
It's still just, it's still
Python doesn't
ranges.
care for that because it's real white space oriented. So if it doesn't see that space in between your equal sign and stuff like that, it doesn't understand. Good question, yeah. Because it can just get really confused if it doesn't see spaces for white spaces. Okay, so let's print out our welcome message. I think that's all of our variables. Let's print it out. A new car price calculator. This program will help you calculate the cost of a new car. So after we've output our welcome messages, the first thing that we want to prompt for is our user's name. So let's set our name variable equal to our result from our input statement. And we'll just say, what is your name?
Sure you put the space in. So it's not switched.
Does it not like it?
Oh no, the space by the question mark, so it's not.
Oh yeah, so I'm not squished together. I'm put that in there, space. Now the next thing I want to know is what kind of car they want to buy today. And that's going to go in our car make variable. So our prompt is, what type of car do you want to buy? And then lastly, we want to get that base price from them. Now, our base price is going to be a number. We'll make it an integer, though, because we don't need any decimal places in this. What is the base price of this car? After we come back from spring break, we'll do some looping practice, and then we'll get started looking at sub-programs. So as we look at this outline, be thinking about how...
You didn't close your integer.
Oh, yep, I got an extra one there, huh? Be thinking about how we could make each of these logical sub-programs. We can test. Let's go ahead and test and make sure we don't have any syntax errors with all of this stuff. I haven't saved my program yet, so I'm going to make this car price calculator python.py. And it pops up asking me my first question. And it looks like it's handling all that okay. I didn't get any syntax errors or anything. That's what I was wanting to make sure of. Everybody okay there? Got it? Good, good, good. All right, so as we continue prompting for input, let's put a comment here prompt for engine choice. Now, when we prompted for our engine, we asked them whether they wanted a 6-cylinder, an 8-cylinder, or diesel. Let's print out our little menu first and do it like we did last time where we did the new line characters. So we want to enter S for 6-cylinder. Now I wanted to go to a new line, and I think that I want to try tabbing after it goes to a new line so we can get this even lined up. So I'm going to do \n for a new line, \t for tab, and then I'm going to say E for 8-cylinder, \n \t, D for a diesel. And then we'll see what that looks like. So we'll print out that little menu, and then we'll use our input statement to just say enter engine choice or something like that. We're going to place their response in our engine choice variable. So I'm going to use the input statement to say enter engine choice.
Don't we have to include the lower cases too?
We could, or we could just accept them, depending on how we wanted to do it.
Or like
So,
if we do an else.
yeah.
Okay.
So let's run this, and let's see how this looks. Oh, it's super close. My 6-cylinder needs to come over just a little bit. So I think if I put a tab character before that tick mark around the S, that should clean it up. So I'm going to try that. So right before the S, I'm going to do \t for tab. Now I'm going to run that again and see if our menu is nice and lined up. So that looks pretty good. We're creating our menu using our print statements. Let me bring that code back up so you can see it. Get that in there. Now we could do multiple print statements if we wanted to do the same thing. It's up to you. But I want you to be able to understand how these control codes work and how that's going to make your life easy when you're formatting things. Okay, so now we have our engine choice. If everybody's good there, we want to do our if statement. So let's check our engine choice. We're going to start out with that keyword if, and we want to know if engine choice is equal to S. How could I check to see if it's equal to the lowercase s? Do we want to allow that like we did on our flow chart?
Do an and or yeah.
Should I do an or? That should do it. So we decided if they chose S, that means that they want that 6-cylinder. We're going to set the engine cost equal to 150. Whoops, not 10, 150. Now I'm going to press enter and backspace and do elif. Now if engine choice equals D, or engine choice equals our lowercase d, oh, I should do E. I skipped my E. So if they choose E, then they're choosing the 8-cylinder. So we want our engine cost to equal $475. Now I can't just say else here to assume that they picked the diesel, because we wanted to make sure that they chose a valid choice. So we need one more elif to say if their choice was the diesel choice, then the engine cost is going to equal $750. So our final else is going to say invalid. Oh, they said you have made an invalid selection. Okay, we need to make sure everything's working there, because we're going to copy that code for our other things. So let's try it. I'm going to say that I want a 6-cylinder. And it looks like everything's fine. I don't have any syntax errors. My test went okay. Okay, are we ready to copy it? Everybody good? Do it.
That else right at the very bottom.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
The same that line.
Is it mad at you?
Yeah.
What's it not like?
No, no, he said syntax
Okay, so let's duplicate it. We should be able to do it really, really quickly. So what I want to copy is beginning here where I say prompt for engine choice down to our print statement, right? We want this exact same code. So I'm going to copy it and paste it. And then I have a whole bunch of places to make some changes. So make sure we have 2 of them. I pasted it right after that print statement. So you should see prompt for engine choice and all that messy code, and then prompt for engine choice and all that code again. So for your second one, let's change it to prompt for what? Interior. So it is our trim choice. Okay, so for our trim choice, we want V for vinyl. Do what?
Where do we put that?
We copied it and pasted it right after our print statement there. Sorry, I know it's always hard when we copy and paste to keep up. So we just wanted to duplicate it right there where it was. Okay, so for our trim choice, we want V for vinyl, C for cloth, and lastly, we want L for leather. And then on the next line of code, I have a couple of things to change. Instead of using the engine choice variable, we're going to be using the trim choice variable. So I wanted to say enter trim choice. So think about it, whenever you copy and paste code, it can be kind of confusing. Now I want to check our trim choices. I'm going to change my comment because I want to make sure that my comment is appropriate too. Now, every single one of these variables needs to change. So is it worth it to copy and paste? Sometimes, but I'm going to make my if statement first say trim choice on both sides. And then I want to do the uppercase V and the lowercase v. And then I'm going to make trim cost be equal to $50.
You could just also copy trim choice to all 6 of them first and then change the.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. And we could do a find and replace on our menu too. We have to, again, be super careful. I'm going to copy trim choice and paste it. Whoops, not there. In my if statements. Trim choice, trim choice, trim choice, trim choice. And then I'm going to change each of my cost variables to be trim cost instead of engine cost. So our first trim choice is V for vinyl, and it costs $50. Our second trim choice is C for cloth, and it costs $2.25. Our last one is L for leather. And it costs $800. Now in our flow chart, we went ahead and did the radio cost. We're going to run out of time, and it would be another copy. And again, we would just be changing those same variables and things. So I want you to try that on your own later. Let me know if you need some help. It's not like homework or anything, but you should try it. So now let's move ahead and say that's the only options we're going to give our user for this car. We're not going to worry about that radio choice. We're just going to automatically give them all. A fancy smart system. So let's do our calculation. So the first thing we had in our calculation was an if statement. If our engine cost equals 0, or our trim cost equals 0. I'm going to put a comment out here. We had an invalid choice somewhere. So we're going to print out that error message, and we're going to say, sorry, comma, space, our name for our user. We're going to add another string. Now this second string is going to start with a comma because we're going to use that proper English where we have that name surrounded by commas. So it's going to say, sorry, comma, Renee, comma, no cost for your, and I want to add that car make. Remember, we had kind of a long output here, so we could practice concatenating. Now, right here at this plus sign, I could try going to a new line. Is Python going to like us? We'll see. So after our car make, I'm going to add the last little part. Can be calculated at this time. So we can test that one fairly easily. Let's run this and let's just choose an invalid option. Oh, yeah, it's mad at me. What's it say? Unexpected end of file. Oh, because I didn't close my parenthesis for my print statement. See if I have any more errors. Nope, that looks good. So I'm going to put in my name. Now I want to use something that is invalid so that I can get that error message out. So that looks good. Both my engine and my trim choice, I got the message, you have made an invalid selection. And then I got the sorry, no, nothing can be calculated at this time. How's everybody? Good, good, good. Let's finish her up. So in our else statement is where we're going to have our output for our good calculation. So we're going to calculate, first of all, our selling price. It's going to be equal to our base price that the user gave us, plus our engine cost, plus our trim cost. We'll go ahead and add in that radio cost in case you want to make that part work, because I don't want it to give you trouble, and it's just 0 right now, so it shouldn't cause us any trouble. Plus, we want that shipping charge. See what that variable was named? Ship CHG. I'll copy that. And then our last thing was our dealer charge. I'll copy it. So that should be everything that we wanted to add into that cost, all of those things. So finally, we're ready to print out our final message. And I am still indented. Just idle has me kind of scooched over here because of that last statement. We maximize this. Come on, idle, let me see the rest of my lines of code. There it goes. Wouldn't give me that side horizontal scroll bar. All right, so I want to print out our last message. I'm going to start out with the user's name, so I don't need double quotes to start, because we're going to give you that variable first. Then after the name, we're going to print out the message starting with a comma, the car of your dreams, comma, your, then after that string, we're going to add the car make. And after this plus sign, I'm going to continue on the next line. And it's going to say, space will cost you. We're going to put a $sign in. I'm going to add in the selling price. And finally, the last little string, going to have the period and then happy motor ring. And close parenthesis. Now this is a pretty large program for not using any subprograms, and it gets a little bit stringy. We see a lot of code. It's confusing and where we should copy and paste things, all those kinds of things. So as we get more knowledge in programming, we start seeing why we need these subprogram divisions a little bit. When we get to them, it'll be a relief because we'll be able to split up this code so it's not just all in one straight line. Okay, so let's run this. See if we have any syntax errors. Wow, so far it looks like it's okay. So what is my name? I'm going to put an uppercase letter there at the beginning so my messages look nice. I'm picking on the Fiat today. I want a cheap one. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and actually pick an engine. I think I'll do the diesel and leather. So I should see a substantial increase in the price based on the options that I picked. Oops, mad at me. What's wrong?
The last print statement.
Yeah, it's the last print statement.
We don't have one for, I don't think that we put a variable for, oh, no, we didn't, sorry.
It looks like it's mad at me about my selling price. It says it must be a string, not an integer.
It's the price that we're concatenating in there.
Uh-huh.
We need to convert it to a string.
Oh, okay. So we need to put that str function. Very good.
It was funny when I went to correct it.
Uh-huh.
I even put converted to an integer by accident the first time. I was like, why is it still not working?
Put int there. Yeah, str with its own parentheses. Let's run that. Fiat 4,000. I'm going to say diesel, leather. Okay, that looks right because I've got a huge price on top of my 4,000. I've got spacing good. Yeah, you could put your radio in if you want to. That doesn't give you guys a lot of time. I know that for lab time, but we sort of used our lab time to write our program. You'll have your practice exam for our test Thursday. I like to let people use it, but it's best if you're using it outside, so we don't have really anybody using it in the room. So if you want to come in a few minutes after we start because you were practice testing, you can do that. Just be super quiet to not interrupt anybody or anything like that as you come in. We really have 8 to 9:50 to get it done, and you guys probably will only need 30 or 40 minutes to get the exam done normally. So, okay. But let me know if you run into any questions on that practice test. Anything look wacky? We had trouble with our first test where it didn't get copied over correctly. So do let me know if you see something weird because there were some things I had to fix in that one. So everybody working for their car price? Let me fix you if not. All right, great, good job. Get out of here. or fix it to do a radio, and I will see you Thursday. Listen, John again. Oh, my new glasses, I can see better.
So I wasn't here at all last week because I was in and out of the hospital.
Oh, no.
I had some allergic reaction to foods and stuff.
Oh,
So
no, you don't have that evil alcohol, do you?
I do actually.
Oh,
That's
really?
exactly
I'm
why I was in
sorry.
there. But
So have you found my Facebook group? Is this new to you?
yeah.
You better find my Facebook group. That's
Yeah.
really awful. I'm so sorry.
Is there something I can do to catch back up with the
Sure.
missing work that I have? Or?
Let's see what you're missing. I think that I made sure that all of the assignments were still open.
Mm-hmm.
You should be able to submit. So just let me know if you have a problem
Okay.
submitting with any. Are you on Facebook?
Yeah.
If you get on this Facebook group, some of them are. Let me show you one. This one is one. They get to whining and complaining, but it'll help a lot. So if you get on there, because like the doctors, it's so new that they really are not very good at understanding
What
all
is
makes you
going
sick
on?
and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really awful. And so if you get on one of the Facebook groups, then you can find things like the hidden ingredients that are in almost everything that are mammal, and it might
Yeah.
not bother you, but it might, so I mean, it's just if you're
Yeah.
still feeling sick, you want to be really careful. For me, the big things were well, everything, but all of the vitamins and stuff I took, because I took a lot of like calcium, vitamin E, and stuff like that. Almost all of them have mammal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. You gotta be careful with a lot of
I'm
things.
sorry you're in the hospital. That's awful.
No, yeah, it's fine. It's just a wake-up call. That was weird.
It's super weird. So did you quit breathing? Or?
Yeah.
Oh
I
my God.
quit breathing the full 9 yards.
So is this the first time it's happened?
I've been allergic to tree nuts my whole life. So like
So you know.
when I was younger, I had a tree nut and my throat closed up. But I don't remember it. But
Yeah, this one's different.
this one sucked.
We'll just be super careful. One of the guys in my Java class last semester had it, and like he took Benadryl every night, and so he was usually okay. And then like halfway through the semester, I don't know, I think that it was this building because it really started making me sick really bad. And they did a lot with the air conditioning and stuff over winter break to try to fix it.
Yeah.
But let me know if it's making you sick in here or something, because there's things in the building that we're definitely setting him off and setting me off.
Yeah.
We think we got it better. So
That's good.
let me know if there's any assignments I can help with or anything that you fixed. Hey guys, what's going on?
So I got your Canvas message that he sent, and basically what it was is just I was working on the rootstone and stuff until like right about when it was due, and I was having some issues with it because it's different trying to code it.
Yes.
And they're like toxins, and it wasn't giving me any feedback, and all that stuff was working. I basically spent a lot of time working on that. I forgot. I didn't realize there was actually like another program.
We'll turn that one on real quick if you want. I'm not worried about you. You know how to do it.
Okay.
So I was
I didn't know
just
if
sending that
Canvas
out, making sure, because sometimes we have people that don't know how to do
Yeah,
it.
I wasn't sure if Canvas would even allow me. I assumed after the deadline.
It should, because I think I have it open.
Okay.
So I'll just dodge you guys for being late, but do turn it in. Because, that first one I just like to see, because it's like, if you can't do that one, I need to talk to you. I gotta turn this off, this silly thing I always forget.